Picture Alexander, sitting at the head of a conference table, his eyes scanning the faces around him with the precision of a general surveying a battlefield. The quarterly review is in full swing, but while others shuffle through papers and exchange nervous glances, Alexander sees something different entirely. He sees inefficiencies in the budget allocation that no one else has noticed, potential market opportunities hidden in the competitor analysis, and the unspoken tension between department heads that threatens to derail the entire project. When Alexander speaks, his voice carries the weight of absolute certainty. He doesn't suggest or propose, he declares. The restructuring plan he outlines is bold, comprehensive, and will require significant sacrifice from everyone in the room. Some shift uncomfortably. Others lean forward, energized by his vision. But Alexander has already moved 3 steps ahead, calculating not just what needs to be done, but how to get each person in the room to execute it flawlessly. This is the world of the ENTJ, the commander, a personality type that comprises merely 2% of the population, yet whose influence echoes through boardrooms, battlefields, and the corridors of power across human history. They are the architects of empire, the builders of systems, the ones who see not just what is, but what could be, and possess the unwavering determination to make it reality. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who laid the foundation for modern personality theory, understood that some individuals operate as living bridges between the world of ideas and the world of action. ENTJs embody this principle more than perhaps any other type. They are driven by what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to synthesize opposing forces into a new, more powerful whole. For the ENTJ, this manifests as an almost supernatural ability to take complex, abstract concepts and transform them into concrete, achievable plans. But beneath this commanding exterior lies a paradox that few understand and fewer still appreciate. The very cognitive architecture that makes ENTJs such formidable leaders also makes them some of the most emotionally vulnerable individuals on the planet. Their dominant function, extroverted thinking, operates like a high-performance engine, constantly analyzing, optimizing, and commanding. Yet their inferior function, introverted feeling, remains largely unconscious, creating an internal emotional landscape that even they struggle to navigate. If this resonates with you, go ahead and like and subscribe. To understand the ENTJ mind, we must first understand the cognitive machinery that drives it. At the helm sits extroverted thinking, a function so powerful and all-consuming that it shapes every aspect of how ENTJs perceive and interact with the world. This isn't merely logical thinking, it's systematic, goal-oriented cognition that seeks to impose order on chaos and transform potential into measurable results. Extroverted thinking operates like a command center, constantly processing information through the lens of efficiency and effectiveness. When an ENTJ enters a room, their TE is already analyzing who holds the real power, what are the underlying dynamics, what needs to be optimized. This function doesn't just think about problems, it thinks about solutions, implementations, and the people who will execute them. Supporting this dominant function is introverted intuition, the ENTJ's auxiliary function that provides the visionary component of their personality. While extroverted thinking focuses on the how, introverted intuition supplies the what and why. It's this function that allows ENTJs to see patterns others miss, to anticipate future trends, and to develop long-term strategies that seem almost prophetic in their accuracy. The interplay between TE and NI creates what might be called the strategic imperative. ENTJs don't just want to achieve goals, they need to create systems that will continue achieving goals long after they've moved on to the next challenge. They are natural empire builders, not because they seek power for its own sake, but because they intuitively understand that lasting change requires institutional transformation. But this cognitive dominance comes with a price. The ENTJ's tertiary function, extroverted sensing, often lies dormant until midlife, leaving them disconnected from immediate physical realities and present-moment experiences. They live so fully in the realm of future possibilities that they sometimes forget to attend to their own basic needs or notice the subtle emotional cues that govern human interaction. Most challenging of all is their inferior function, introverted feeling, which governs personal values, individual worth, and the subtle emotional truths that make us human. For the ENTJ, this function remains largely unconscious, creating an internal emotional reality that feels foreign and threatening to their systematically ordered world. Sarah had built her consulting firm from nothing, transforming a small basement operation into a multinational corporation with offices in 12 countries. Her strategic brilliance was legendary. She could walk into any organization and within hours identify the core inefficiencies that were costing millions. Her employees respected her, her clients revered her, and her competitors feared her. Yet sitting alone in her corner office at 2 a.m., surrounded by the monuments to her success, Sarah felt completely hollow. This is the commander's dilemma, the profound disconnect between external achievement and internal fulfillment that haunts so many ENTJs. They are perhaps the most naturally gifted leaders in the human personality spectrum, yet they often feel like imposters in their own lives, successful by every measurable standard, but mysteriously empty at their core. The source of this dilemma lies in the ENTJ's relationship with their inferior function, introverted feeling. While their dominant extroverted thinking drives them to optimize external systems and achieve measurable results, their FI remains stunted, leaving them disconnected from their own authentic emotional needs and personal values. They know how to make everyone else more efficient, but they struggle to understand what actually makes them happy. This creates what psychologists call the achievement paradox. The more successful ENTJs become in the external world, the more they may feel disconnected from their internal world. They master the art of strategic thinking, but remain beginners in the art of emotional intelligence. They can inspire others to greatness, but struggle to nurture their own souls. The tragedy is compounded by society's expectations. We celebrate ENTJs when they're in their element, commanding, deciding, optimizing, but we often have little patience for their emotional struggles. When a commander shows vulnerability, it's perceived as weakness rather than humanity. This reinforces their tendency to compartmentalize their emotional lives, further widening the gap between their public success and private fulfillment. Dr. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the dangers of psychological one-sidedness, warning that individuals who overdevelop their dominant functions while neglecting their inferior ones become increasingly rigid and ultimately self-destructive. For ENTJs, This manifests as a tendency to treat their own emotional needs the same way they treat inefficient business processes, as problems to be solved rather than experiences to be felt. The result is often a successful but isolated existence, surrounded by admirers and subordinates, but lacking the deep, authentic connections that make life meaningful. Marcus had always prided himself on his emotional stability. As the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, he made decisions that affected thousands of lives without losing sleep, navigated hostile takeovers with the calm of a chess grandmaster, and maintained his composure even during the most contentious board meetings. But when his 20-year-old daughter called to tell him she was dropping out of medical school to pursue art, something inside him shattered. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus found himself overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't categorize, control, or strategically deploy. He felt abandoned, worthless, and somehow fundamentally flawed as a father. The logical frameworks that had served him so well in business offered no comfort in this realm of hurt feelings and disappointed dreams. He was experiencing what Jungian psychology calls grip stress, the phenomenon that occurs when an ENTJ's inferior introverted feeling function takes control of their personality. When ENTJs fall into the grip of their inferior function, they become almost unrecognizable to themselves and others. The confident commander becomes anxiously obsessed with personal relationships and individual approval. The strategic visionary becomes hypersensitive to criticism and perceived slights. The efficient decision-maker becomes paralyzed by self-doubt and emotional turbulence. During these episodes, ENTJs may experience intense feelings of personal inadequacy, despite objective evidence of their competence. They might become uncharacteristically withdrawn, spending hours analyzing every interaction for signs of rejection or disapproval. The same mind that could reorganize entire corporations suddenly becomes convinced that a colleague's brief response to an email indicates deep personal animosity. This psychological phenomenon reveals something profound about the ENTJ psyche. Beneath their commanding exterior lies a deep well of sensitivity and need for personal validation. Their inferior FI, usually suppressed in service of their dominant TE, contains all the emotional experiences they've intellectualized away, all the personal hurts they've strategically ignored, and all the self-doubt they've refused to acknowledge. The path out of grip stress requires ENTJs to do something that goes against their every instinct. They must stop trying to think their way through emotional problems and instead learn to simply feel them. This means accepting uncertainty, embracing vulnerability, and acknowledging that some aspects of human experience cannot be optimized or controlled. For many ENTJs, this represents not just a personal challenge, but a fundamental philosophical crisis that questions their entire approach to life. Behind the strategic mind and commanding presence of every ENTJ lies a heart that beats with surprising intensity, though few are ever privileged to witness it. In love, ENTJs reveal perhaps their most fascinating and contradictory nature. They are simultaneously the most strategic and the most vulnerable romantic partners in the personality spectrum. When an ENTJ falls in love, they approach the relationship with the same systematic thoroughness they bring to building a business empire. They research their partner's interests, optimize their schedules to create quality time together, and develop long-term plans that include shared goals, financial security, and mutual growth. They show love not through poetry or spontaneous gestures, but through action, solving their partner's problems, removing obstacles from their path, and creating systems that make life easier and more efficient. Yet this systematic approach to love often masks a profound emotional depth that even ENTJs themselves don't fully understand. Their inferior introverted feeling function, usually kept locked away in service of their commanding persona, finds its most authentic expression in intimate relationships. When an ENTJ truly loves someone, they experience emotions with an intensity that can be overwhelming even to themselves. The challenge lies in expressing these feelings in a way that others can recognize and receive. ENTJs often struggle with verbal emotional expression, defaulting instead to practical demonstrations of care. When their partner is stressed about a work presentation, an ENTJ might spend hours creating detailed preparation materials rather than simply offering a listening ear. When their loved one faces a difficult decision, they provide comprehensive analyses rather than emotional support. This can create a painful disconnect in relationships. Partners may feel like they're being managed rather than loved, while ENTJs feel unappreciated for their genuine efforts to improve their loved one's life. The ENTJ's way of saying "I love you" involves taking responsibility for their partner's happiness and success, but this can feel controlling to those who simply want emotional presence and validation. The deepest irony is that ENTJs, who are natural leaders in every other context, often feel helpless and insecure in intimate relationships. Their usual tools, strategy, analysis, optimization, seem inadequate for navigating the subtle emotional dynamics of romantic partnership. They may find themselves seeking constant reassurance, questioning whether their feelings are reciprocated, and experiencing anxiety that seems completely out of character. Emma was 7 years old when she reorganized her entire elementary school's lunch system. While other children played during recess, she noticed that the lunch line was chaotic, unfair, and wasted precious playtime. She approached the lunch supervisor with a detailed proposal for a rotation system based on class size and seating arrangements. Within a week, the school had implemented her suggestions, and lunch service improved dramatically. This story, while fictionalized, captures a truth about ENTJs that anyone who knows them can recognize. They emerge fully formed, seemingly born with an internal compass pointing toward leadership and optimization. Understanding the childhood development of ENTJs provides crucial insights into how these remarkable individuals come to embody such commanding presence from such an early age. ENTJ children often display leadership qualities that can be both impressive and concerning to adults. They naturally assume authority among their peers, organize games and activities, and display an unusual capacity for strategic thinking. Where other children might accept inefficient or unfair systems, young ENTJs see problems to be solved and possess the confidence to propose solutions. However, this early emergence of leadership can create unique challenges. ENTJ children often struggle with authority figures that don't match their standards of competence. They question rules that seem arbitrary or inefficient, and they may clash with teachers or parents who expect compliance rather than collaboration. Their natural tendency to take charge can alienate peers who find them bossy or intimidating. Perhaps most significantly, ENTJ children often learn early to suppress their emotional needs in service to their drive for achievement. when expressing sadness or fear is seen as weakness, and when their value seems tied to their competence and results, young ENTJs quickly learn to compartmentalize their feelings and focus on performance. This childhood pattern of emotional suppression, while it contributes to their later success, also lays the groundwork for the struggles they'll face with their inferior introverted feeling function. The child who learns that emotions are obstacles to be overcome becomes the adult who struggles to access their own authentic feelings and needs. The developmental journey of ENTJs is often one of increasing external success accompanied by growing internal disconnection, a pattern that, if left unchecked, can lead to the profound isolation many ENTJs experience in midlife.